welcome to Long Live Hooky Street, the podcast where we rewatch and discuss every episode of Britain's most beloved TV comedy, Only Fools and Horses. I'm Jenny, and I'm joined from Hong Kong by my co-host and sister Heather. Say hello, dude.
Hello! So we have reached the end of Series 3. Today, as we've done before, we are going to do a series overview episode where we sum up our thoughts on the series as a whole and go over our rankings and favourite lines and moments. And we will also go over any corrections or clarifications we may need to make and respond to any comments or questions that we may have gotten so far. And we will end with our quiz as usual. So today's episode, however, may be a little longer and more in-depth than the previous series wrap episodes because between Series 3 and 4, quite a lot happened.
Yes, it really did. So I thought before we get going, I would just try and quickly break down exactly what we're planning to cover in this episode with regards to the show history. Because as we all know, it does get quite complicated around this time and very sad. Because today we're going to talk about the death of Leonard Pearce. So as many fans will know, Leonard actually passed away during the beginning of the filming of Series 4, which had already been commissioned all the way back before they even started filming Series 3. So there is a little bit of a different timeline for this one. Most importantly, we will talk about what happened between the end of Series 3 and the beginning of Series 4. But quite a lot of the events that took place after the death of Leonard Pearce and the casting of Buster Merrifield will find their way into our future Series 4 episodes, Happy Returns and Strained Relations. So today we'll mostly just be discussing the death of Leonard Pearce.
So we will be talking a bit about Leonard Pearce's death today, but we also have a very special episode coming out on Wednesday that will go into more depth about Leonard Pearce and his life. So please check that out on Wednesday. So let's start with any corrections or clarifications, dude.
Look, will you stop splitting hairs?
Okay, so going from the comment sections of all of our videos on YouTube and Spotify at the time, we've got just a couple of things to address that we maybe got wrong or needed to clarify. So in Healthy Competition, I said that Rodney was running away from the mugger in Time on Our Hands. Obviously, I meant Heroes and Villains. So that's one fix. Wanted, Heather wanted to make it clear that upon rewatching, the audience were not laughing at Blossom yelling rape. They were actually laughing at Rodney's run. Do you still think that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yes. The laughing really kicks in when he starts running away. That's why I thought that was wrong, what I said.
And for May the Force Be With You, several of our fans have pointed out that Slater meant the microwave was stolen when he said it feels hot. I think we both did know that, but for some reason we didn't make it clear and we were talking about when they were using it or something. That's why it was hot.
Actually, I'm embarrassed to admit that I didn't ever think of that.
Oh,
I think it's because
okay.
I was watching it from a kid's perspective and I never rethought the line. And as a kid, I never understood that hot meant that it was illegal.
But you know what popped into my head when I thought about this is when in the scene in Long Legs of the Law, when Rodney's like talking about the watches and he said, "You mean they're hot?" And Del says, "They are so hot, it is advisable to wear oven gloves when winding them up."
Yeah, that's true. I never thought about that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, that you must have understood, right? I think it's just sometimes in the moment we don't always click. So
yeah.
Thanks for everybody for letting us know that. In Yesterday Never Comes, we kind of skated over the banana box thing, and when I listen back, it does, sound like Heather said that they kept bananas in the cabinet. According to one of our top listeners, I won't say his name unless he wants us to, so let us know if you ever want us to say your name. The cabinet was recently made out of the crates that the bananas were shipped in, and the joke is that they don't make bananas, they grow and ship them. So thanks for that explanation. Again,
yes,
I didn't think they kept.
I needed that.
Yeah, I didn't think they kept bananas in the cabinet, but when I listen back, I hear that that's what Heather says. So yeah,
I probably did think that. So I'm not the smartest banana in the box, am I?
No. And then also for Yesterday Never Comes, I said that I would try to remember where I had read something specifically about John Sullivan's writing of female characters, and I found it. So I actually read this on the Wikipedia page for his other show that was gaining a lot of popularity at this time, which was Just Good Friends. So it says on his page, according to a 2007 Comedy Connections documentary on Just Good Friends, Sullivan was originally motivated to create the character by Cheryl Hall, the co-star of Citizen Smith. Cheryl Hall had complained that Sullivan was incapable of writing comedy for women, always giving the best of his material to the male characters. Sullivan was stung by the remark because, in his words, she was absolutely right, and deliberately he set out to create a strong and funny female lead. So he did have a lot of success at the time with this show, Just Good Friends, with a female lead. So it's clear that he has the ability to write comedy for women. I think the issue that we've had so far with Only Fools and Horses, and we've discussed this a lot, is that a lot of the female characters so far have just not been great representations of women. Even a strong no-nonsense character like Corin, the joke is that she's scary and she rules the roost and Denzel has to behave himself around her. I think we know that more great female characters are yet to be introduced. It's just something that we're looking at and discussing as we go forward. Yeah, I mean, obviously there has to be comedy characters like Miranda and stuff come in, so it's not that we're saying he can't write good female characters. I think we'll probably
have more conversations about the female characters later as well when we get Raquel and Cassandra, because they are... Raquel certainly is more in-depth. I can't honestly say I think Cassandra is that in-depth, but Raquel is.
But still, I mean, they are two female characters that join the male cast as permanent cast members. Yes. They were so important additions to the cast that they actually extended the size of Nelson Mandela House to accommodate them. So they are main characters. So yeah, that was that. One of our Spotify followers, again, I won't say names on here unless you want us to say your name. So let us know if you're okay with that. He pointed out that he thinks Trigger's real name, Colin Bell, is mentioned in Rock and Chips. So I will have to go back and rewatch that because... I only watched it once. I currently do not have a DVD player set up in my apartment. But Mom and Dad sent me the DVD of Rock and Chips for my birthday this year. So that's how I was able to watch it. It might not surprise anyone to know that it's not readily available here in the US.
I'm surprised it's available anywhere. So.
Well, it's on DVD. I don't think it's like streaming.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, I think let us know if you know if it's streaming anywhere because it's available on DVD and I've got the 3-episode set, and you can buy each episode separately as well. I don't think it was on BritBox. I had BritBox, and it wasn't on there. So, another one of our Spotify followers said that David Jackson definitely does not have a real Irish accent, and that his accent is awful. The Irish accent. So, I mean, I think I could tell that it was kind of a fake accent, but we just wanted somebody to clarify. We knew he was not born in Ireland. So. Same follower also let us know that Reg actually calls Grandad Ted when he sees him in Thicker Than Water. I think I always thought he said Dad.
Oh, it's good to see you. It really is.
Okay, and then we'll have to apologise in advance if anybody has any corrections from Thicker Than Water because we had to record this the day before Thicker Than Water was released, so we will not have time to address any issues that anybody has with that.
Yes, that's to give me time to edit the episode.
Yeah, so normally we are about 4 or 5 weeks ahead with recording our sequential episodes, but we're trying to do the series wrap as close to the air date as possible so we can address as many people's comments as we can, because we love reading the comments, don't we, dude?
Yeah, I really enjoy reading all of them.
Yeah, we love reading all of your comments, and we've been so overwhelmed and happy with how many people repeatedly comment, including our fans that are actually ranking along with us, which is so much fun.
Yes, that's true. And we also really love reading the emails that we're getting from people because we've had quite a few people contact us privately as well and tell us how they're enjoying the show and give us a little bit more information about themselves. It's really nice to know our listeners on a personal level. So now might be a good time to mention that we are now on Facebook and Instagram. So please go and give us a like and follow us. We have also expanded our podcast availability to several new platforms, including Apple Podcast, Pocket Casts, and iHeart. So how about we start our show history section, dude?
Okay, yes, let's go ahead. This could be a bit in depth, so bear with us. So as we mentioned earlier, Series 4 was already commissioned at the same time as Series 3 was commissioned. So John Sullivan had been given 2 series at the same time, back in the summer of 1983. Following the airing of Series 3, which finished, as we know, with Thicker Than Water on Christmas Day 1983, the BBC had actually made a decision to skip production of the show for the entirety of 1984 until December time, and planned to broadcast Series 4 in January 1985. This decision was made because John Sullivan and Ray Butt were so busy working on their other successful show at this time, Just Good Friends, that we mentioned, and that had only just been given its 2nd series, so they were taking time to focus on Just Good Friends for the year of 1984. One thing that did happen in the earlier half of 1984, though, was that Sullivan was approached by the Maureen Oil Consortium and Phillips Petroleum because the head of their European division, Philip Cordill, was a big fan of Only Fools and Horses. They wanted an installment of the show which would be aimed at children with the purpose of promoting careers in the oil and gas industry. The BBC did not want to be involved, and thus none of the Only Fools and Horses logos or title sequences would be allowed to be used. The Only Fools and Horses official inside storybook says it was filmed at a studio in southwest London by an independent company called Topaz, and this book also quotes John Sullivan as saying, "It was great fun to do, but we had to be a bit more careful with the script than usual, as it was being aimed at children." The Lovely Jubbly 40th anniversary book says it was made by an Edinburgh-based company called Grange Films on 16mm film. They sourced and created all the items used for the production and recreated the entire Trotter flat. The end credits do credit both Topaz and Grange Films, so I'm not exactly sure who did what. What we do know is that the episode was produced and directed by veteran British TV director Malcolm Taylor, who has also directed such British TV classics as Coronation Street and EastEnders. The episode is 19 minutes long, and it had a different theme tune, which was arranged by Ronnie Hazelhurst and actually written and sung by John Sullivan.
He's in the North Sea drilling and out to make a killing. It's a fiver to a shilling that he will. He's an old man and he's licensed to drill. Now he could come from Dallas or even Crystal Palace, maybe a town called Alice or Tulsil. He's an old man and he's licensed to drill. He's an old man, and he's licensed to drill. He's an old man, and he's licensed to drill.
It says on IMDb that it was released on April 26th, 1984. Now, it wasn't aired on TV, so if that date is correct, then perhaps that was the day that the VHS was released. So there is a VHS. I did try to look for copies of the VHS, but I couldn't find any. Let us know if you have one at home. Incidentally, I was busy being born in April 1984, so here I am. I'm finally on scene around the same time as Licensed to Drill. Not exactly a great episode to be born alongside. So I guess we should do a little synopsis here, and we can sum up our thoughts. Let us know in the comments if you've watch License to Drill. I don't think it's easily available. We watched it on I watched it on Daily Motion. Heather hasn't even watched it, have you, dude?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't.
I watched it, but it was a bit of a struggle. Okay, just this once we're going to read the synopsis directly off IMDb because I didn't make a synopsis in my own words, but I did write notes. So Heather will read the synopsis real quick and then I'll just put in my notes.
As Rodney and Grandad watch a war movie, Del Boy, who had earlier returned from the cafe with a magazine about oil, is now reading it while lying on the couch, and he begins educating his younger brother and grandfather, explaining all the products which would not exist without oil. He then insists that they watch a short film being shown on TV about the Maureen offshore oil rig. When the film is over, Del goes to bed after insisting that Rodney reads the magazine in time for an important business meeting, which will occur the next day. When Rodney wakes up the following morning, he finds a strange man in the flat, and it emerges that Del has just concluded a deal with him. He explains that he has bought an oil rig for £400, intending for them to drill for oil themselves. However, Rodney points out to a seemingly unaware Del that offshore oil rigs are located hundreds of miles offshore, not hundreds of yards, as Del appears to presume. And Del suddenly realizes that he has been conned. Del attempts to give chase to the mysterious man called Paddy, who has, in Rodney's words, done you up like a kipper, but is prevented from doing so when Rodney informs him that the van is out of petrol. On this ironic note, Del, jaw agape, stares into the camera before attempting to throttle his younger brother as the credits begin to roll. We briefly see the Paddy character smoking a cigar and laughing triumphantly in his car outside the flat before he drives off.
Okay, great. Thanks, dude. So since you haven't watched it, I went through and I made a couple of notes. So one thing that I really did note on this, and of course this is obvious, but it's an incredibly educational sounding script. It sounds off from the normal Only Fools and Horses episodes because you can tell it's like as if Only Fools and Horses were sponsored. It's exactly what you would imagine. They're sponsored in this case. So everything they're saying is promoting the oil company. So it comes across pretty educational.
Yeah, not a good people to get into bed with.
It's not really great. There's no laugh track. I know some people don't like the no laugh track episodes. I think in the No Laugh Track episodes, I know exactly when to laugh, like Hull and Back and Miami Twice original. But this time it seems super weird to have No Laugh Track. It's very weird to see the usual banter, especially with Grandad, because there aren't any episodes with Grandad with No Laugh Track. It almost feels like a hollow kind of emptiness after the things they say.
Well, the story seems like a hollow emptiness as well.
Yeah, I mean, because it's promotional, yeah. It's very strange to hear them saying brand names. They say Kellogg's Cornflakes. So they don't say Kellogg's, but I think the Kellogg's Cornflakes box is really in front of the camera. And then Del actually says Tesco's, which they never mention Tesco, do they? Any other point?
I don't think so, although I'm pretty sure Raquel has Tesco bags in one of the
yeah,
episodes.
and I know Del mentioned Sainsbury's, actually, thinking about it now. I think that's just because they say Tesco. It's weird. They actually refer to the BBC directly as well here, but I can't remember the context.
Yeah, that's weird.
So a classic Only Fools and Horses bit here where Rodney's put off his food by seeing the spilling oil on TV. This is a really common John Sullivan joke, like seeing things and being put off the food, or saying things and being put off the food. I'm just thinking of when Albert says that if all his veins and arteries were stretched around the world while Del's eating. And then there's loads of other times when they're talking about specimens and stuff, and they all like go to take a bite and they're like, ugh. So that was a classic.
Yeah, I've ordered an omelette here.
Grandad's actually falling asleep while they're watching the oil movie, which I thought was actually quite funny because it was boring.
Dad, wake up. This is exciting.
Oh, I know. I'm getting excited with my eyes shut.
It's so boring. The transitional music between the scenes, so weird.
Last time he said that, you finished up in protective custody.
Because there's never any transitional music between scenes. The guy that played Paddy was Ian Blair. He was extremely tall, and they use a really weird low camera angle to perhaps accentuate how tall he is. He was actually a guest actor in John Sullivan's first show, Citizen Smith, so that's probably why they brought him in for this. Now, this is something that's pretty funny. There are several references to deep-sea divers in this episode, and I noticed that they use the joke that they later use in Frog's Legacy.
Hold on, I can only swim 100 yards.
No, you need to swim 100 yards. Down.
And then finally, Del says that the politicians of the UK are hindering the oil companies, which sounds like propaganda to me, obviously commissioned to be shown in schools. So would that be allowed now? That was my question.
I think it is allowed now, depending on what you're promoting.
I mean, yeah, you can do whatever you want if you've got enough money. Obviously, nobody knew this at the time, but License to Drill would be the last time the three original cast members would be seen performing together on screen. There was an appearance for the Children in Need appeal on November 23rd, 1984, where all three of them appeared with Terry Wogan. You can watch parts of Leonard Pearce's final interview on YouTube. The Only Fools and Horses Appreciation Society channel has several videos where you can watch clips of the appearance. They include snippets featuring all three stars and other familiar faces from British TV at the time, such as Joanna Lumley. Leonard does sound very different from Grandad in real life, as he discusses modifying working-class accents to get hired as an actor back in the day. So worth a watch for sure, and a good channel to subscribe to for lots of great interview clips and content. So continuing on, around the autumn time in 1984, when I was just a little baby, the BBC was gearing up to start filming Series 4. Sullivan had already written 7 scripts, and they were all ready to go. Here was a major change. Ray Butt decided to step down as director due to finding producing and directing too much of a workload. So for Series 4, he passed the torch to Susan Belbin, a longtime BBC production manager. But she at this point had never had a directing job. So she said, "Thank you, Ray Butt, for my career." So the plan was as follows. Location filming for Series 4 was due to take place between the 9th and the 23rd of December 1984. The first episode of Series 4 was supposed to be Hole in One, and there were 2 days of location filming that took place as scheduled. The first day, they shot scenes at a pub just off of Ladbroke Grove in Kensington, and this was the stand-in pub for the Nag's Head. The second day's filming took place outside Kingston upon Thames County Court. So this is why there are lots of photos of Leonard Pearce in the wheelchair with the blanket on his lap. We're going to talk about this when we get to Hole in One, but there's people saying that the dialogue between Kenneth MacDonald and Leonard Pearce that was filmed on this day still remains in the final edit of Hole in One. But we talk about that when we get to Hole in One. Ray Butt recalls on this second day of location shooting that he said to Leonard Pearce, When are you with me again, you lazy old sod? Leonard Pearce replied, next Sunday. To which Butt replied, I'm buggered if I'm paying you for a whole week when I'm not seeing you because we're all still working. Butt recalls this is the last time he saw Leonard Pearce. On Wednesday, December 12th, 1984, Leonard Pearce suffered a heart attack whilst in his home in Archway, and he was rushed to the Whittington Hospital at Highgate, North London. Pearce's landlady, Jan Francis, was actually the one to call and inform Sullivan and his team of the news. At this time, Leonard's health condition did improve, and Sullivan was actually able to visit him. He recalled, he had lots of wires going into him, and he showed us what he said was a support machine. It was just a small box, and I thought he got it wrong because I thought they were these big things. During this visit, Sullivan assured Pearce that his role would remain open for him upon his recovery. He brought with him a pink china pig called Trotter, which had sat in the control box during studio recordings of the show. Pearce had apparently loved the pig and would touch it for good luck before shooting. In actual fact, the one that Sullivan bought was son of Trotter because he couldn't find the original Trotter. On Saturday, December 15th, 1984, following his release from hospital, Leonard Pearce suffered a second heart attack and died at the age of 69. The news did not reach the team until 8 a.m. the following day, Sunday, December 16th, 1984. This was the day that Pearce had been due back on the set to continue the location shooting. Ray Butt received the phone call from Leonard Pearce's agent, Carol James. Butt recalled, we were due to start at 9 a.m. and I had to go up there and tell them all that Leonard had died. Everybody was absolutely gutted and there were loads of tears. To most people, cast and crew, Leonard was Grandad. They all called him Grandad and hardly anybody called him Leonard, and he loved that. So he cancelled filming. No one was in the mood to work that day. It was a very sad time.
Oh, it's so sad.
Can you imagine,
like, thought he was getting better.
You're sitting there getting ready to shoot.
Out of the hospital. I mean, that does happen a lot, doesn't it? People come out of the hospital thinking things are better and then they have a relapse.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know about now, but I feel like there was such a short amount of time. You're talking 3 days from his first heart attack and he was released.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on the severity of the heart attack. It just seems too soon, maybe.
Well, it also depends on the person, I guess, because from all accounts I've heard, Leonard Pearce was a very upbeat guy and very positive with his outlook. So with someone like that, I suppose you could argue they may have seemed better than they were.
Yeah.
And maybe that's partly the reason that they thought he was well enough to go home.
I mean, he was sitting up and talking to all of his visitors and stuff, so I don't know if that is maybe a factor.
Yeah, it's awful though. It's very sad, of course. And when you're saying all that, I absolutely picture that meeting and how it must have been for Butt to go to all of them and tell them this news. It must have been devastating.
Well, so yeah, that's the thing. So David Jason and Nick Lyndhurst were actually in makeup when they were told, as far as I understand, based on what Nick Lyndhurst says in his quote that I have next. So Nick Lyndhurst said Ray came into makeup and he stood in the doorway. He didn't say anything. He just shook his head gently and then walked out again. He didn't need to say anything. We knew. Leonard had been on all of our minds all the time since he'd suffered his first heart attack. No one had been thinking of much else all week. David and I followed Ray out, and it started snowing really heavily for just a few minutes. I just stood facing a shop window and I cried my eyes out. After a while, we went back to our trailer, and I remember David very gently just swearing under his breath every so often. We were both very upset. So yeah, this was the middle of December 1984, so yeah, it does make sense that it was snowing. David Jason said, we'd been shooting some scenes that didn't involve Grandad, so we were in makeup when Ray came in and told us the news. That was it. We all just went home. We couldn't even think about working that day. It was just too upsetting.
You have to be professional, but this is such a personal thing. And actually, if it had been me, I'd have thought that snow was symbolising Leonard in some way, since it just happened for those few minutes.
I've heard a lot of accounts of things like that happening when you're thinking about something and like the weather changes for just a second, or somebody looks at you in a certain way and it's almost like, yeah, you're getting a sign or something.
I think it's nice to think about those sorts of things sometimes because it can be a comfort to you.
I'm not religious in any way, but I'm not like completely averse to spirituality and stuff.
No.
So John Sullivan said, apparently a few days after Jan and I visited him, they took him off the machine and he had another massive heart attack. Without the support of the machine, he couldn't live. My wife Sharon took the call from Ray saying that Leonard had died and she was in tears. We were devastated because he was such a lovely old man and such a kind man. He was always sending things for the kids, like dinosaur books. He was like a third granddad to our kids, and it got very confusing for them at school because they thought they had 3 granddads. That's so sad. In the lovely jubbly 40th anniversary book, you can see a couple of the newspaper clippings reporting Leonard Pearce's death. And I think we're going to add a few images of those into our Leonard Pearce special. So they are from the Daily Express and the Daily Mirror. These mostly filtered out into the newspapers around December 17th onwards, so it says there was an outpouring of affection for a wonderful actor who had found fame so late in life. So December 17th, 1984 would have been when the public found out that he had passed away. So I'm currently reading, or actually at this point I've finished David Jason's newest autobiography this time next year, and he mentions something which I know I've read elsewhere, which is that Leonard Pearce was fascinated by the launch of VHS. He said, "Now we will live forever." It's heartbreaking to know that he would not see how successful and legendary Only Fools and Horses would become. More than any of them could imagine at this point. Wouldn't he be so happy to know now, though, he really is not just living forever, but living forever as one of the most popular and beloved TV comedies in the whole of British history?
Oh, I mean, you can't hope for anything more.
No.
If you're an actor, to be remembered for something that you loved doing.
No.
Long after you've gone. That's wonderful. It's an absolute privilege to have a legacy like that.
So this is the last little bit of show history we're going to cover in this episode of the podcast. So on December 17th, 1984, Ray Butt went to his office at the BBC and met with John Sullivan, David Jason and Gareth Gwenlyn, who is now the head of comedy. They all agreed that the show would continue, despite the massive loss of Pearce. He announced that filming would begin again on January 2nd, 1985, since the crew were due their Christmas break anyway soon and John Sullivan needed time to go away and write new scripts. 3 weeks. Not even 3 weeks.
God,
2 weeks.
Absolutely insane. Yeah. Not even 3 weeks.
I
and
know.
Over Christmas when you're supposed to be having a rest. And he just had that awful news as well.
And grieving, yeah. And his kids are grieving. So this is where there were discussions of how they were going to handle the writing out of Grandad's character. So Sullivan and Butt both considered Leonard Pearce irreplaceable and had no desire to recast the Grandad character. David Jason said that someone higher up in the BBC pecking order suggested that they just get a look-alike and the audience would soon accept it and forget it. But Sullivan said they may do, but I wouldn't. No. Sullivan felt it would be an insult to Pearce's memory, so they didn't even consider the idea. But they did all accept that there needed to be a third character, particularly the Elder, as the original concept of the show was designed around the War of Ages. Just going back to that, I don't think the public would have ever accepted that, would you?
No, that's ridiculous. I can't think of a single time that has ever worked, where someone's put in a look-alike and the audience have just gone, okay then.
No.
Because it's not just the character you fall in love with, it's the actor as well. And it's the actor that brings the character to life, so it wouldn't have worked.
It would have been really weird, wouldn't it, to see a different old man playing Leonard Pearce? I'm playing Grandad.
And they're right, it would have been insulting to his memory. So I'm really glad that they knocked that idea on the head. Pretty sharpish.
Now, here is the part that you have referenced in the past, dude. There was a suggestion at one point that a woman be cast in the role of the Elder. David Jason said, somebody said, I know, just make it different. Why not make it an old aunt that comes to live with them? I could see this idea looming in front of me like some sort of monster. Everyone was fired up and John thought he could make it work. And I said, it won't work. How are you going to bundle her in the back of the van or say, shut up, you stupid old git? You'd have to get rid of all of that banter.
I've heard David Jason say this in interviews, and as sexist as it might sound, he's right. It wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, I don't think it's sexist. It's just that, the character of Dell respected women, elder women, right?
It is sexist, I think, in this day and age to think that you treat men and women differently in any way. I think a lot of people want to just erase that completely and have everyone be treated equally. And I can see the merits of that. But at the same time, I am also a fan of chivalry. So I do think that having men treat women with respect is very important. And as you say, men not pushing a woman into the back of the van or saying, shut up, you stupid old git, to an older lady as opposed to an older man, I do understand that it would have looked very different, and it certainly would have painted Dell's character in a very different light. Well, Dell and Rodney's characters, because Rodney would have been doing it as well, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, you only see Dell interacting with, like, Auntie Rosa, for example, in Second Time Around, to see that he was very respectful of older ladies and caring and protective.
Yes,
so, yes,
exactly.
imagine an older aunt just living in that flat with them. They wouldn't have been, like, able to just do the insult humour the way they did with Grandad. So he's totally right.
Even the physical comedy would have gone from it as well, because a lot of the pushing around, as you said, acting silly. I think about the time they closed the door on Uncle Albert in Danger UXD.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I'm not even thinking about all the things they do with Albert in the future. But yeah, like, imagine a woman wouldn't have been able to pull off that stuff in the same way.
Although I would have seen Dell using it for his advantage. I would have seen Dell using it to his advantage in the market for selling things.
Yeah, that's right. And I assume there were female fly pitchers, but we never see any example of female fly pitchers, do we?
The only woman we see selling in the market is Vicky,
Yeah.
and she couldn't get further away from a female fly pitcher if she tried.
No. She sells like me, just sitting quietly and like waiting for someone to come up to her. So
Selling Ponzi paintings. That's £85 for a bad picture of a fish.
People around here don't pay £85 for a car. Fortunately, David Jason's voice was heard, and the conversation turned towards the new character being an uncle. David Jason continued, John was keen to keep the war references going, so it was decided to go with the idea of him being an uncle who had been away in the war and at sea. And that's how we came to have Uncle Albert. Yay, Uncle Albert. John Sullivan said, it was a gigantic rewriting job. We wanted to do a funeral because the Trotters were a real family, and if Grandad dies, then we should reflect that on screen. It was a bad time. The rest of the series had been written, but I had to write Strained Relations, the funeral episode. Then we all agreed that we couldn't start the series with a funeral, so then I had to write another episode, Happy Returns. John Sullivan said he did not like it when shows do not properly explain the departure or absence of a character. And neither do I, and I'm sure a lot of viewers don't. How do you feel about that, dude?
No,
Hate.
I definitely don't. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a show where someone's just disappeared.
I can think of one.
And no one's explained it.
You didn't watch this, but I just finished watching ER, all 15 seasons. And they had like a major character just not in the episode. And then like 3 episodes later, they're like, oh, I can't believe she got another job at a different hospital. And I'm like, she's a major character. What are you doing? I'm not going to say who that was in case anyone hasn't watched it.
Oh, yeah. Spoiler alert. The only thing I can think of is in Coronation Street sometimes when you knew in real life the actors were having a breakdown and suddenly they'd just go to Spain. That happened all the time with Liz McDonald.
I mean, it was really bad during COVID. I know we both said that Coronation Street has turned to shit anyway, but so many people were just gone after COVID and they never came back and they never explained it.
Yeah, I mean, it was easy in Coronation Street to explain them just going overseas randomly. But yeah, it used to piss me off, especially when it was in the middle of a storyline and then this actor would just disappear and you'd be like, oh, all right then. I guess we won't get any closure on that storyline.
I feel like it's an insult to the audience. John Sullivan is like a true like comedy lover and a comedy writer. Obviously, he loved all these shows, you know, that he had all the actors come in from. He really understands the way that the viewer feels, and he knew that he can't just bring Uncle Albert in and not really say anything about Grandad. Yeah, he knew that.
No, of course. And especially because the character was so loved. I mean, even if you hate a character, you still want to understand why they've suddenly disappeared. But somebody that was so loved, and as he said, part of the family unit, there's no way that people would have not asked what had happened to Grandad. And they certainly couldn't have kept him alive and said he'd gone somewhere because it was clear that his character would never have done that. So it was absolutely the right thing to do.
Definitely.
Giving him the proper send-off as a character in the show as well as privately.
Yeah, and it's really great because they were all such good friends and such a tight-knit group that the BBC actually supported this idea. Because I feel like nowadays, maybe certain TV stations would be like, oh, this is all just too depressing and not okay. You just have to skate over this. And they hadn't...
Yes, I agree with you, especially for a comedy. But I am curious, though. They seem to ask David Jason into all the meetings, not Nick Lennard.
No, so there's a lot of this all the way throughout, and we'll get more into this towards the end of Series 5 as well, when David Jason is one of the biggest voices in getting the extended showtime. Ever since the very beginning, David Jason and John Sullivan and Ray Butt have been like a 3-man team on this. Nick Lyndhurst didn't seem to get involved in all of this BBC stuff, but David Jason was right at the helm of all of the changes that are made over the years, arguing and fighting for the episodes to be longer, helping John Sullivan get his way. Like, he's always there with Ray Burton Sullivan, which is really important, I think, because if he hadn't been, they might not have done a lot of this stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's wonderful. I just wondered why Nick Lyndhurst maybe didn't want to be involved in that, or if he wasn't invited to be involved in that. I'm not sure. He was young.
I feel like they would listen to him, but yeah, he was so much younger. David Jason was in his, like, mid to late 40s by this point, and a much more prominent voice, probably, of an elder almost. Also, without David Jason, there is no show, just like without John Sullivan, there's no show. But the BBC would take it very seriously.
Well, I suppose in some ways David Jason was just being like Del, and he was looking after Nick Lyndhurst like he was Rodney.
Yeah, exactly.
Making sure the actor's side of the story was heard.
Exactly. Nick Lyndhurst, as you just know from watching interviews and stuff, is a lot more of a reserved, quiet person than David Jason.
Yes, he is. Very true.
Although if they did ask him, I'm sure he would have agreed with everything David Jason said.
I mean, if you think that David Jason wasn't in that meeting when they discussed about adding an aunt instead of an uncle, then that might have happened. And again, we wouldn't have had the show in the later years, because that probably would have made it a huge flop.
It's true. But then as we go on to mention in Strained Relations, when we talk about the casting of Buster Merrifield, David Jason and Nick Lyndhurst, neither of them were super sold on the idea of Buster Merrifield at first, but luckily it did work out. But
that's true.
Anyway, let's continue. So, the new location filming dates for Series 4 were January 2nd until January 17th, 1985. The studio recordings would then take place on consecutive Sunday evenings starting January 20th, with the exception of Hole in One, which was recorded on February 12th, just 11 days before Happy Returns was aired. So, we will leave the story there for today. I feel like it makes sense to continue when we move into our next episode, Happy Returns, and then we will discuss the casting of Buster Merrifield in Strained Relations. Otherwise, this episode might run a little long. It already is, probably.
Okay, we will do our quick rundown of things that were happening in the UK around that time. So 1984 and the very beginning of 1985.
Okay, so perhaps most importantly, 1984 and 85 were dominated by the miners' strike, which was a major industrial action in the UK at that time. It was the largest strike since the general strike of 1926, and no other strike in history has come close to its numbers or in size, duration, or impact since. This ended in March 1985.
So there was another great loss to the comedy world. On April 15th, 1984, Tommy Cooper collapsed and died on stage during the live show, Live from Her Majesty's.
Just over 1 month later, Eric Morecambe of Morecambe and Wise died following a heart attack he suffered on stage at the Roses Theatre.
June 1984 brought the UK a big change to its school examination setup, and this will have affected many people our age who watched the show. The O-levels and CSE exams were replaced by the GCSEs, which are still the exams taken today and the exams that both Jenny and I took in high school.
Correct. Between July 19th and August 12th, 1984, Great Britain and Northern Ireland competed at the Olympics in Los Angeles, California, and won 5 gold medals, 11 silver, and 21 bronze.
On the 15th of September 1984, the Princess of Wales, Princess Diana, gave birth to her second son, Prince Harry.
On the 9th of October 1984, Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends was first broadcast on ITV, becoming one of the most successful children's TV programmes of all time, since Postman Pat on the BBC 3 years prior.
On the 12th of October 1984, the Provisional Irish Republican Army attempted to assassinate the Conservative cabinet in the Brighton hotel bombing with an explosive device planted at a conference hotel nearly a month previously. Margaret Thatcher escapes unharmed, but MP Anthony Berry and 4 other people are killed, whilst Norman Tebbit is trapped among the rubble and his wife Margaret is seriously injured.
On October 16th, 1984, police drama The Bill aired for the first time on ITV. It still remains the longest-running police procedural in British television history.
On the 25th of November 1984, 36 of Britain and Ireland's top pop musicians gather in a Notting Hill studio to form Band Aid and record the song Do They Know It's Christmas Time at All, in order to raise money for famine relief in Ethiopia.
This song would be 1984's Christmas number one. Since we don't have a Christmas episode for the end of Series 4, we can also let you know that the number one movie at the box office for Christmas 1984 was Ghostbusters, and the highest grossing movie of the entire of 1984 was Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes.
And in January 1985, the first mobile phone network in the UK was launched by Vodafone, shortly followed by Cellnet.
Oh my god, I had Cellnet, do you remember? Is that still a thing?
I do remember
Can anyone
Cellnet.
say,
I don't
is
think
that still a
so.
thing? Because I haven't lived in the UK in nearly 15 years.
Okay, can someone tell us if Cellnet is still a thing?
Finally, this is a big one for the fans of the show. We don't watch it, but February 19th, 1985, EastEnders debuted on the BBC. Now, which do you prefer, dude? Coronation Street or EastEnders? So, dude, let's talk about our rankings.
Okay, now we are going to do a quick summary of our episode order for Series 3 from our rankings, and let's see how they compare. So take it away, dude.
Okay, so my series order was, I think in the past we haven't said the numbers, so we're just going to say the order. My Series 3 order was number 1, Friday the 14th. Number 2, Thicker Than Water. Number 3, Who's a Pretty Boy. Number 4, Healthy Competition. Number 5, May the Force Be With You. Number 6, Homesick. Number 7, Wanted. And number 8, Yesterday Never Comes. Let's say yours, dude.
So mine is number 1, Healthy Competition. Number 2, Friday the 14th. Number 3, Thicker Than Water. Number 4, May the Force Be With You. Number 5, Homesick. Number 6, Wanted. Number 7, Who's a Pretty Boy. And number 8, Yesterday Never Comes. So both of us have Yesterday Never Comes as the lowest ranked one, which is interesting.
But I only have Yesterday Never Comes one ranking below Wanted, so it was a close call. I think in general our orders are similar, except you have Who's a Pretty Boy so much lower than me.
Yes, and I have Healthy Competition quite high compared to you.
Yes.
You've got it at number 4 and it's my number 1.
Right. Yeah, but it's not that far off.
Although actually your highest ranking of the whole series is 12 and mine is 5, and your lowest ranking is 51, whereas mine is 48.
Yeah.
So you have a little bit more distance
Yeah,
between your
mine's
rankings.
a little bit lower than yours, because you've got 2 that are in your like top 15 here.
That's true,
Yeah.
yeah. Healthy Competition and Friday the 14th. They are great episodes though.
Great, yeah. Anybody wants to put their Series 3 order in the comments, that would be great. It's so fun to see how different everybody interprets the episodes. I love it. Because we
Yeah.
all love the show, but we all have different favourites for different reasons, so love it.
Yeah, it was really nice reading one of the comments where someone said that they thought about the episode differently because of what we said. I believe it was about Wanted.
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to spark different thoughts about things. Maybe you haven't thought of them that way, because we're certainly doing that for each other.
Yeah, and of course, sometimes you remember an episode really well, but you haven't actually watched it in like 15 years, and then you do, and you're like, wow, some things do seem different, just depending on when you watch them.
Yep, very true.
Okay, so regarding our awards segment that we've been doing throughout the first 3 series, we're now going to do the end of series rewards. So we'll start with Plonker of the Series. So Plonker of the Series is already decided for us. It's going to just be who got the Plonker the most times. So let's take a look. Who got Plonker in all of our episodes, dude? Do you want to read it?
So in Homesick, our plonker was Dell. In Healthy Competition, our plonker was Mickey Fierce. In Friday the 14th, our plonker was Tom Whitten, the gamekeeper. I don't think he's much of a
Tom
contender.
Whitten, the gamekeeper.
In Yesterday Never Comes, Miranda was our plonker. In May the Force Be With You, Roy Slater was our plonker. In Wanted, Dell was our plonker. In Who's a Pretty Boy, Dell was our plonker. And in Thicker Than Water, Reg Trotter was our plonker. So actually something I've noticed from this is basically every time there was a episode that was centered around a character, a new character that come in, that person tended to get the plonker.
Yeah, but what about Who's a Pretty Boy? We get Denzel, we get Corin, we get Mike, and Dell still the Plonker.
Yes, that's true. But for the most part, as a generalization for Series 3, it does seem to go to the new character that the episode surrounds.
Yeah, well, that same thing happened in Series 2. It's like Lord Ridgemere got Plonker and stuff.
Yes,
but anyway,
true.
Overall, Plonker of the series is Dell.
Put it back, say nothing. She might blame Denzel.
So now we're going to talk about the best line of the series. So we actually need to choose this. I'm not going to mention all of the lines. I'm not going to go through them. I think we just need to pick which one we both vote for out of these. So if you want to hear the lines for each episode, they're at the end of the episode, so you can have a listen.
I think this is an obvious one.
Yes, obviously. I think most people, if you said, what's the best line of series 3, considering it has almost a legendary status at this point, I think we have to go with...
Well, you got a Wendy house?
Yeah, it's not just legendary with the fans, it's legendary within the show's production, because they used to call Lions of Wendy to bring the house down. You've also got the fact that this is the last series Grandad features in, so his line has to be the best line. Because we've said a couple of times, it's almost like we should have a separate category for Grandad's best line of the episode. So Grandad, until this point, really has always had some of the best lines.
I think he won for series 1, didn't he? For the War is Hell speech.
Let's move on to best moment of the series.
Okay, so this one again, I think we can just look at the list, but I think for me, it's the end of May the Force Be With You.
Yeah, I'd say so. Only really, I guess, if you're watching it new, because a lot of us can still love the moment, but it's not quite as good when you already know the reveal's coming. But yes, in the eyes of a new viewer, that's got to be the most shocking and fun moment of the series, right?
And you've got less chance of a pull than the Queen.
As long as I know.
Right, for the third and last time of asking, who nicked the microwave off the back of the lorry?
I did.
Yeah, I mean, a personal favourite for me, which is a bit more niche, is the Monopoly game in Friday the 14th. But for epicness and for notoriety, it would be the end of May the Force Be With You, because the entire episode is leading up to that moment, and the reveal is perfectly done at the end of that episode. So I think that's a best moment of the
Featuring
series.
Roy Slater as well, which we know is such an iconic character. So yeah, okay. So that's our best moment of the series. So for each series wrap so far, we have done our continuity checks, and we're going to continue with that for this series. As before, I have written a quick summary of references to age and dates that are mentioned so far in these next 8 episodes, and we may refer back to series 1 and 2. So looking at series 3 as a whole, the main timeline references we get all come in Thicker Than Water. And it's definitely going to get a little muddy in the waters by this point. We've touched upon this last week, that Del says Reg left in 1965 when Rodney was just 5 years old. So now we have a birth date for Rodney as 1960. Or birth year, sorry. So taking facts from previous episodes, that means Joan died 1 year before Reg left, which fits because her gravestone did say 1964. Rodney was 4 when Joan died, which fits with most of his descriptions, right? So here are a few inconsistencies. Del said in A Losing Streak that his dad left on his 16th birthday, which could not fit because we've got Del's likely birth year as 1945 based on his age when his parents got married in 1947, which was mentioned in Second Time Around, meaning that he would have been 20 in 1965. There's also supposed to be a 13-year age gap between Del and Rodney, so that means Del should have been 18 when his dad left and his mom died. So also another little inconsistency here is that Del says in Homesick that Dr. Becker helped out the family in 1962 when they moved into Nelson Mandela. Rodney was born in Nelson Mandela, so if he was born in 1960, that would not have been possible. We also have a minor yet major mistake that Rodney has not gotten any older since Series 1. He says in Big Brother that he's 23, and then in No Greater Love in Series 2, he says he's 23 and a half. And then in Series 3, Healthy Competition, he says he's 24, yet 2 whole Christmases have passed. So, to sum up, we have definitely gone slightly off track here, but as always, no big deal, and it's just for fun. And we know that John Sullivan was not keeping track of this stuff. So this is really just for fun for fans. Okay, and finally, it's time for our end of series quiz. So this time it was my turn to create the quiz for Heather. So here we go. So I've done a question for each episode, as we have done before. So let's begin with the question for Homesick. How many oranges does Miss Tibbs purchase from Del at the market?
Should be 3 and 1 for luck.
Yeah, he gives her 1 for luck.
So
yeah.
4.
That's correct, yeah, 4. Although she only purchases 3. It's a bit of a trick question.
Yes, I said 3 originally, and then I said 1 for luck, so I got it right. You trickster.
I think she purchases 3. 3 for 90. Or is it 4 for 90? 3 for 25p, 6 for 90. She gets 3 for 25p, right? Okay. And now you should get this correct because this is your favorite episode of Series 3, right? Healthy Competition.
Oh, God, no pressure.
Okay. How many smoke-damaged fire alarms are in Lot 35?
I'm going to guess 30.
That is incorrect. There are 70 smoke-damaged fire alarms in Lot
Fuck,
35.
I was going to say a high number. I was going to say 60, but I still would have been wrong.
Okay,
so.
no problem. Just to let everybody know who thinks these questions are too hard for everyday people, because we keep trying to challenge each other, we're going to do lots of separate little quizzes and publish them that have different difficulty levels. So your question for Friday the 14th is, what does it say on the mug that the Trotters are using to shake the dice when they are playing Monopoly?
I have no
But
idea.
you love this
I've never looked at that.
scene. Oh, dude.
I do love that scene. Kiss me quick.
No. Good guess. It says idiot.
Oh, man.
Okay. So, question 4. So this is for Yesterday Never Comes. When Del enters the auction house to find Miranda, he waves the daffodils in the air and accidentally makes a bid. But how much does he bid?
Oh, God. I got the quote in my head. This is 106 or something like this.
Is that your guess?
Not 106, it can't be, but it's something and 6. Am I right about
You
that?
are right about that, yeah.
2006? 4006? 4006?
Close. It's 3006. I never would have got that.
I said 2 and 4.
Never would have got that in a million.
I got the 6 bit because I remember the 6
Yeah.
and it goes up and he
He
shakes
says,
after
yeah, like
that,
3005. He's like, the bid is in the room. And then Doug comes in. He's like, 3006.
3006 to the gentleman at the back. Yeah. And then those two guys look at each other.
Right. Okay, so for May the Force be with you, which pirate did Trigger play in the game of pirates that the boys used to play in their youth?
Well, it wasn't Bluebeard.
I always wanted to be
Slater wanted to be
Bluebeard.
Bluebeard. Trigger wasn't Long John Silver, was he?
Is that your answer?
I can't think of another pirate. I know they mentioned one more pirate other than Long John Silver, but I'll just guess Long
That's
John
correct.
Silver.
Trigger was Long John Silver.
Yes.
I can't remember who Del
What
is.
was the other pirate
Yeah, they
mentioned?
mentioned Del because I can't remember what pirate Del is.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to remember because there is another one. So I've only got 2 right so far.
That's right. So your question for Wanted. What are the 3 places in London that Del looks for Rodney when he is missing? Well, he actually says he's been all over, but he mentions 3 specific places.
Oh, God. If I had any idea about the geography of London, I might even be able to guess
Oh, you
some,
can't.
but I actually have no idea. I know he goes to some places that there's loads of druggies and people taking magic mushrooms, but God knows what those places are.
Okay, so the 3 places he mentions are Charing Cross, Soho, and Leicester Square.
Fuck yeah, I wouldn't have known. I couldn't have even guessed one of them.
No problem. So, for Who's a Pretty Boy, we have, what is the name of Denzel and Corin's canary? It's only mentioned once.
all I can think going around my head is say Viv Richards is king.
Come on. That's where it's mentioned. So at the very beginning of that scene, Denzel says the bird's name.
I know, come on, something. Let me hear them golden tones. Oh, God.
Okay, you don't have to get it right. I'll give you a bonus question afterwards. You can name the stand-in canary that Grandad buys from the pet shop, because I know you know that one.
A toro.
Toro,
That
yeah.
one's easy. Oh, man. Can you give me the first letter?
S.
Sam?
No, it's Sylvester.
Damn. I should have guessed that. Sylvester's such a bird name.
Come on, Sylvester.
Sylvester, let me hear them golden. Of course, now you said it. It's in my head, but oh, man. At least I got a toro right.
Yeah. And I wrote this question for Thick in the Water, but I look back at it and I think it's a pretty bad question. I don't really know why I picked it, but it's too late. So at the pub, Grandad asks Del why he did not come down to the Nag's Head for the New Year's Eve party. What is Del's answer?
What did the New Year's Eve do last night? Didn't feel like it.
No, he says he had
Stayed at a
he had a
mate's.
bit of business to attend to. But he did stay at
Oh, is that
Triggers.
what he says?
Yeah, so you're quite right with that.
Yeah.
And that is all I have for the quiz. So how many did you get?
Oh, God, I only got 2 right.
Yeah, same as I did for
That's
your
terrible.
quiz. So let's make it a pact that we won't make the quizzes so difficult that neither of us
That
can
will
get
make them
right.
even harder. Yeah, good idea.
But-
so we really screw each other up so we can't even get one right.
But let us know in the comments if you'd be interested in different difficulty levels of quizzes for you guys as viewers, because we are going to make some interactive videos for some quizzes. And are these questions like bad? Like, are people not getting them at home, or are you getting them?
No, they're not bad. They're just hard. To be fair, if you're an Only Fools and Horses fan, to the extent that we are, you probably do want some more challenging questions that you actually can't answer. Because most of the ones that I do online, I get them all right.
Yeah, and it's boring.
Especially the quote-based ones. So I got quite a few quote-based ones wrong there, which I shall hang my head in shame forever.
Yeah, and there's lots of quiz books where there are categories that I don't know any of the answers. So I like it when I don't know some and I know others. So yeah, let us know what you would prefer. But for the end of series quizzes, I feel like I made mine harder because Heather's was so hard at the end of series 2. But I could have made it really easy. But then I feel like it's boring.
We assume that you are a hardcore Only Fools and Horses fan if you are listening to a podcast about it. So okay, so drink up, we're leaving.
Okay, that's it for series 3, and a somber one today, sadly. So join us for a special bonus episode coming this Wednesday, Leonard Pearce, Britain's Grandad. This will be much shorter than our usual episodes, but we felt Leonard Pearce deserved a special tribute, so please tune in for that. We will also continue with our regular episodes next Saturday, when we will be starting Series 4 with Episode 1, Happy Returns. And for one last time...
Au revoir, listeners. If you like what you hear and want to contact us, you can email us at longlivehooky street podcast@gmail.com. All one word, no spaces. Bonjour.